Hello and welcome to this Community Pioneers and the Heart of Connection experience. I actually used the chatbot to create that title, and I really liked it. After many, many minutes of playing around with it, I like this phrase, community pioneer. So I wanted to start with that for a moment and talk about what that is and what that means to me. So, a community pioneer is at the heart and soul of a community, in particular, a new one. So I've been connecting with a lot of village builders and community builders in the past couple of years. And one of the things that happens with a thriving community is that, especially if you're beginning, there's this pioneer community. So these are pioneers are adventurers and explorers. And they begin, they're like the heartbeat of community connection. They come together with a shared vision and they explore together and they grow together and they create together. I love this word community pioneer because even more than a builder, I don't consider myself actually a community builder, which is strange, right? If I'm going to be running something called the Community Builders Circle, I don't really think of myself that way, but I do think of myself as a pioneer and an adventurer and an explorer. And I think all we have to do to step into that role is have a willingness to see something new. So that's what I'm talking about in Community Pioneers. And all of you, in my mind, to me, are pioneers just by showing up here to see what's going to happen. My goodness, what are we going to explore today? So, my intention is to give us all a taste of community, maybe a deeper taste, a deeper sense of what makes community, hopefully, some insights along the way. And of course, I'm also hoping to possibly bring some more people into the community builders circle who might not otherwise have come. So I will be recording this and sharing bits of it afterward, though you will not be on the video, just your voice if you choose to speak. But that's of lesser importance to me, honestly, because I know that the right people will show up for that. The right people are showing up for that. And I'm really excited about who has, by the way. So this is about an experience of community for you. And hopefully, if this experiment goes the way I think it may, we'll see that it's a lot simpler and a lot closer to home, finding this community that many of us are looking for. So I want to invite you to take a look around. Look, maybe put the gallery view on if you're not already there, and just look at these beautiful faces. Look at these beautiful people. We have gathered as a community. We have something in common. We're all here, for one. We're all human. And for one reason or another, we're all interested in this topic of community. Now, I happen to know many of you, and I know that many of you are actively involved in community or exploring community and community building or village building and what it means to come together as a group or a team. And I know I am actively in that exploration myself. So here we are. And I would love to know what's on your mind, what's in your heart about community right now. And if you would, if you can, where you are and it's safe, just type into the chat and tell me, what question do you have about community? Or what would you like to explore? And I'll leave that open for a bit and let you ponder while I talk about something called connection. I think that when people say they want community and I ask them, what does that mean to you? When I ask myself what that means, connection is a big part of that. And that and belonging, feeling like there is a place that I belong, a home. And I think it's so, there's such a longing for that because so many people have been feeling themselves alone and in isolation and longing for something else. Community seems to be an antidote for separation, a feeling of being separate from others. And I think that there's something we're on to in that. Other people seem to be a beautiful, beautiful mirror, a reminder when we connect and also when we don't feel connected of what's happening inside of us and a call to come home to where we always belong and where we're always connected. So I see in the chat, safe communication and healing. Yeah. So that's one of the things that can happen in community, that we hope happens in community, is that it's safe for us to communicate, it's safe for us to be, and it's a place where we can heal. And I think that that's what happens naturally. And perhaps let's see if we might experiment with that. Let's add that to the soup that we're mixing up here, to this recipe we're cooking up together in this community. Safe communication and healing. What if it was safe here? How would you show up with the other people if you were being safe for the other people here? And that in itself feels like it's very healing. Developing connection, exploring relationships with other life forms outside myself. I like the way that sounds. Other life forms, all other life forms. Some of them are on this Zoom call. Some of them are in this room with me right now. Some of them might be called Larry. That's an inside joke. Oh, cool. Thank you so much for adding that. And if you don't wish to share in the chat, you can just create an intention for yourself. What would you like to experience about community? I'll just give you a moment. I think for me, I'd like to experience more deeply the magic of coming together as a group. Mm, fun. Oh, yeah. Yes, please. Let's enter with a spirit of fun. Interested in the alchemy and synergy of community. What happens and is created together? Oh, me too, please. Because when we come together, we're not just a sum of our individual parts. There seems to be an amplification of our individual presences and whatever it is that we bring. We're bigger than just us, and we know it. We feel it on some level. I think this is why we're so drawn to come together in this way. Beyond superficial acquaintance. That's interesting. Hmm. How do we know when we've gone beyond the superficial? Is it because of the things we talk about? Or is it the way that we feel? Hmm. Togetherness versus healthy solitude. Bouncing between us and I. Hmm. This seems to be at the heart of many community and especially village building explorations because we don't want to lose our sense of self in the group. We want to feel, some people use the word sovereign, autonomous, connected, and still connected with ourself, connected to our center, grounded, and also connected to other, that with that belonging, that feeling of safety. So thank you so much for this, by the way. I'm going to take all of these and go deeper in the explorations in the month to come around these questions and topics of exploration that come from you, whether you're in the community builders circle or not. I'll also be creating other videos or articles around what I'm learning so that I can share with everyone. A place to try out new thoughts and ideas in caring space with no judgments attached. A space where people reflect the knowing that we all have what we need and are enough. Wow, I want to be a part of that community. I think I am, actually. So the first thing I want to do today as a group, we've already been doing things as a group, right? Is a little connection exercise. Because one of the things I said we would explore is, where does connection come from? And why do we sometimes feel disconnected? What's happening? What's going on there? So this is an experiment, which means there's no way to do it right and there's no way to do it wrong. It is a journey of discovery. So the first thing I want you to do is just check in with yourself. And how connected do you feel to this group of people right now? Scale of 1 to 10. And you don't have to tell us if you don't want to. Just note it for yourself. On a scale from 1 to 10, how connected do you feel in this moment? Hopefully you don't hear the dog barking in the background, but that's why they're not invited to this party. Okay, so that's going to be our benchmark in this connection experiment. This is where we're starting, whatever number of connection you're noticing. So now what I want you to do is think of something, come up with something that feels just a little agitating. Get yourself a little bit agitated. So this might be thinking about a barking dog in the next room. That's what I'm going to use. Barking dog. So just get yourself a little bit agitated. I'll give you a moment. And now notice, how connected to this group do you feel on a scale from 0 to 10? 0 would be not connected at all. 10 would be super connected. And just notice that. I'm going to tell you that my feeling of connection went down from like a 6 to a 3 when I started letting myself get agitated with those dogs. Yep. So now I want you to shake it out a little bit. So this is where we get to do a little fun thing. That's right. Anybody watching the recording gets to see me move my shoulders. Yeah. So shake that out. And then when you're ready, if it feels good for you, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. And I want you to really let yourself be here. Sink into the chair or the floor that you're on. Let yourself settle. Notice how you're breathing. Allow yourself to take up space, as much space as you want. And imagine yourself surrounded by beauty, beautiful colors, beautiful nature, beautiful feelings. And take a few breaths and sink in a little more. And notice whatever you notice about your experience, whatever you might be feeling or thinking, and just breathe through it. Breathe it in and breathe it out. You might imagine yourself listening to beauty as if it was beyond sound, almost something you can feel. When you're ready, open your eyes and notice, how connected do you feel now from 0 to 10? So you might look at these other people in the gallery. How connected do you feel to them? Do they look different to you now than they did before? And I want to invite you to share what you're noticing about connection just through that simple little exercise we did. And if you could raise your digital hand, that would be great. You can go to the reactions button and raise your hand so I can see, because I only have a few at the top here. What are you noticing? Hi, Rob. Please unmute yourself.
Hey everyone. Hi Stephanie. Thank you for your beautiful, can I call it introduction, for your taking us by the hand and letting us flow into this beautiful energy. So yeah, I love how you explain, or how you bring clarity in with this exercise, in lowering these barriers. That's what I feel. So and that means that a lot is already there, but some things get in the way. So we just need to recognize them and give them a place so we can see more clearly. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Do you have a sense of what it is that gets in the way, Robert?
Yeah, I think like with the agitating part, you use sort of a negative feeling. And that's a good example, of course, that if you don't have this negative association, but a beautiful one, your sense of connection rises, and you're more open to connecting. And I thought that was, yeah, pretty amazing. Also for me, it's a bit tricky, to get agitated in the first place, but it's it's also tricky because I love to tap into each other's energetic uh, zones and levels. And when you are in one community, that opens up a lot of other doors. But still, here online, uh, it's also beautiful to exercise this, to connecting also on an energetic level. So
Mm,
thanks.
thank you. Thank you, Rob. Mm. Yeah, that was an experiment. That's the first time I've ever done that. I was thinking about what could we test? How could we test this out for ourselves? So I didn't know what would happen, but I had a suspicion. But I also know how magical it is inside each of us, and we can create anything. So just because I was getting agitated with the dogs doesn't mean I necessarily would not feel connected. But I wanted to see. It did kind of. So, Sam, hi. What did you notice, or what are you noticing?
I'm in awe. This was such a enlightening, surprising experiment for me. When you first asked the question, I was like feeling 1.5 for group connection. And was thinking like, oh, I don't really know the people in this group. I know Steph, like there's maybe some people that I've seen before, but like really feeling connected, 1.5, and was thinking that's more at this external factor of previous connection. And then we did the agitation thing and I dropped to 0. I was like, oh, okay. So it's not just this like set in stone thing, but the where my attention is and what I'm focusing on plays a role in how connected I feel to people. That's a good thing to notice. And then we did the other one and settled in and then reconnecting, and I was all the way up to a 3. And so just felt such sweet awe at that, and the realization that um, connection with other people, there's this me factor and my own groundedness, settledness, openness, because after that third experiment, I guess it was like there wasn't any agitating. I was just here to be present. I was just present, and that presentness, and probably also the factor of everyone else's presentness too. I don't know how much. We'd have to do another test where only one of us went through that procedure. Um, I don't know. That was so cool. So thank you, Steph. I'm in awe just already. What a delicious treat and goodie I've gotten out of this. And it makes sense too in thinking about connecting with people, and how when I work in a service industry capacity and I can have really sweet, genuine, like hearty connections with people that are total strangers. They just walked in the door a little bit ago. And so, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I'm in this place of like openness and care, and maybe they are too. And so something special gets to happen there versus with when one or both of us is in our own stuff. Uh, there's not really connection that happens. There's more this like transaction. I'm going to help you along your way, and that's that. So, thank you.
Mm, you're welcome, Sam. The me factor in connection. I like that you brought that up. How big of an impact does this way I'm showing up have in this feeling of connection? How big of an impact does what's going on inside of me, have when it comes to that feeling of being in community? It's a lot bigger than we usually think. And I'm going to tell you just a quick story that came to mind when I was listening to you, Sam. I think it was 7 years ago, maybe. I was reading A Course in Miracles, which might not resonate with everyone. It's got a lot of very Christian language in it, but I picked it up and I was just like, whoa, the words just went to my heart when I started reading. And I happened to be reading this while I was on a writer's retreat. in a place called Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. And it's the middle of the winter. So it was really us and the locals. And there was a joke that, they weren't the most attractive people on this island. And I went to a grocery store with a friend, and I just looked at the people, and I was shocked because they all looked so beautiful to me. It's like, what is going on? I felt like I knew these people, and they were gorgeous. Now, they were not physically gorgeous. I could see that with my eyes, but there was something about them that truly looked beautiful. And the only thing that was different was that reading this Course in Miracles had put me in this beautiful feeling of, I'm okay. I'm here. This feeling of connection. And people looked different to me, and my experience of them was completely different. This is such a simple thing and such a powerful thing. So, Tom, hi. What are you noticing?
Hey. Connection. And for me, when you asked to put a number on it, I couldn't do it. There was no number. It was like a total blank. And what I really love about that is also that there was no getting to connection when you asked the question. And the power of that question, every time you asked it, it was just there. The connection was just there. And it didn't have a range and didn't need a range. And there was no question. It was just there, which is really, really beautiful. And it's almost just like it's on. It's already on. And the question is enough to see that it's there, and it's just there, and it's enough. And then, in the same moment, I can be thinking about, like, it was really interesting when you asked the agitation question. The thing that occurred to me was to start thinking about a trip I'm going on and some things I haven't figured out yet. So I started in my mind saying, well, will I do this? Will I do that? And then you can see in real time, the only thing that was happening was I was thinking about something else. Maybe you could call that distraction. But as soon as you asked, now how connected do you feel? It was just there. And what had just happened had no bearing. The thinking had no bearing on the fact that I was connected. So that was really, really awesome. Then the other things, just, the closing of the eyes, the stretching, just became fun things to do. And maybe you might say the awareness of the connection maybe seemed to go in and out because other things were being maybe focused on. But it's really nice to know that it's there. It's already there. And the question is so powerful because it just says, like, hey, are you connected? Yes. Good. And but also that feeling that it's enough is, I think, is really important, because if you ask that question and then you feel the connection, you could say, yeah, but it's not that great, or it's not. That's okay, but I think appreciating what's there, actually, if it does grow, that helps it. So that was my experience. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Tom. Thank you for sharing that. I don't know if you're noticing this, but everyone is having a different experience in this experiment. And that is perfect because it's yours. You get to see something for you. This is what I hope to do with anyone that I'm working and playing with, is just point in a direction that we want to see more about, connection for this example. And then we look. and you get to see. Hi, Sean. What did you notice?
You know, the exercise, I noticed the difference from one thing to the other of just being awareness. I don't know how much it affected my levels or not, because it's hard to kind of nail that. But I did want to share something about just coming into today, and because the last chapter of the book that you gave me, I had to do with setting yourself to default settings, you know. And I don't know if you remember that book, but I've been kind of cognizant of that since yesterday when I read that today. And to me, it was kind of like going back to just like when we're young, you know, you have no, like, your experiences are only inside your family, and then you go, maybe your first community is a kindergarten or something, so you're so fresh in your mind, like in this community, like building, when you started asking those questions, I started to that came to mind. And coming into a new community, without, you come in with your experiences, and if you, like for me, I was in exercising the going back to default settings of not bringing my experiences into a new community or new group of people. Just like maybe when you saw those beautiful people, that you were in a mindset that allowed you to see the beauty of those people. In the same way, like going back to default settings in the sense of removing experiences that would affect, you know, coming into a new community. But even your first new community is apprehensive, you know, kindergarten, whatever, in this experience as a child. You know, when I first started looking at default settings, it was just going back to, just as a child, you're fresh, you don't have any experiences of different things, of different people. Sometimes certain people would, going into a new community, you would be maybe react or have different feelings would come up depending on the different people that you see, if you have all these experiences, as opposed to kind of resetting yourself and just being fresh and open to seeing the community as they are, without bringing experiences with you that would give you a predetermined, you know, understanding of who that person is based off your experience with people in the past. So, like, that was kind of like, as you were doing this, that was on my mind, so it kind of blended into the experience. And you know, the different, yeah, I don't know if I ever won above 3 at any point, because yes, I think so, but probably went up and down from the exercise. So yeah, I just want to share that with you.
Oh, thank you, Sean.
Welcome.
I think that brings up a really beautiful point, that one of the things that can keep us from connecting and feeling that connection can be our judgments, our memories, things that have happened in the past, our expectations, perhaps, of the way things should be, and then a displeasure when they don't measure up. In other words, thought. A lot of thought that feels kind of sticky, uncomfortable, tense. And when we drop that, I think, you know, when I think back to that, because it really was a magical experience being in the grocery store. I was in awe. It was bewildering to me at the time. Now it isn't so surprising, because actually I have moments of this much more often, but at the time, I think it was the first most profound time that I was just like, oh my God, people are so beautiful, but they're not beautiful, but they are beautiful. You know, I stopped seeing my judgments of them. And instead I saw them like their souls. It's like I was seeing their souls and not my thinking about them. we act differently when that happens. Like, I'm sure I was smiling at people who maybe I would have thought, ooh, you're strange looking. I'm not going to smile at you before, you know. It's really cool to notice. Anything else that is coming up that you'd like to share before we move on? Well, so I'm going to give you an opportunity now to, well, first let me ask you a question. What helps you feel connected? What have you noticed? Maybe in this time together or perhaps before. And I'd love to hear either you can put it into the chat or you can raise your digital hand and unmute yourself. What helps you feel connected? What are you noticing so far? Hey, Tom.
Yeah. I would say if people appear friendly, that's so big. And I know a lot of that's me, right? Like you were talking about, are they friendly or they're not friendly? But if they appear friendly to me and kind of open and maybe non-judgmental, that's always helpful. But if that's the feeling I have from the group, then it just feels like anything's possible.
Mm. That's cool.
And that's happening here, by the way.
Yeah. And that's interesting, right? Like, I'm wondering, what is it that appears friendly about us? You know, I think we have probably some smiles or maybe a few familiar faces. That's cool. Thanks, Tom. Hi, Judy.
Hi. For me, it's about my mind, having a quiet mind and an open heart. And in that space, I feel connected. When my mind is busy, I can feel like I'm on the outside of the group, looking in and wanting to join in and wanting to bend the beautiful feeling that other people have. That's not available to me in that moment.
Mm. Yeah. A quiet mind. Thanks, Judy. Me too. In fact, one of the things that I've noticed is that I feel if I'm not feeling connected to someone, what I know to do for me is I know I'm not listening. So I'm listening to my thinking instead of to this person in front of me. My attention is on this noise in my head instead of right here. So to the degree that I can, I will listen. And immediately I feel more connected. It's almost like I come online, like Tom was saying, whoop, the connection's there. And all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, here we go. And when I'm connected here, I'm connected here outwardly too. It seems to happen at the same time. That's been my experience. Hi, Jen.
Hi. So I noticed like the quality of connection is really different for me if the people are in like a being state rather than a doing state, like when they're doing nothing. I feel like what you're talking about, like their beauty, and it feels like being in nature, you know, like in a beautiful forest or something, but with a lot more depth. Like it's like that with people. And I get that from movies too, like those kinds of movies where nothing's happening, like you're just watching someone sitting there doing nothing. And I wondered for a long time, why do I love that so much? But I think it's just, I don't know, it's something about the quality of people's beingness. And maybe it gets to a certain essence or something. I don't know what it is, but it's very different for me. And I live like where I live, compared to where I used to live, it's a lot more heart-led kind of place, and people aren't necessarily super productive. And I just find, like, I just made the connection during this call, like I've always thought they're just so adorable. Like the people here are so adorable. And it must be because they're not so busy. Like they're not so type A, they're more type B. So I guess that seems to be a thing for me, like a resonance.
Yeah, that's really cool to notice. You know,
Yeah.
there's something about being and beingness and seeing someone who's just being that for me is kind of like pointing me in the direction of just being. Like if I hang out with a group of people who are just present, I start to join them there. You know, it's like an invitation for me to show up in that way. So it's kind of like where they're pointing me in that direction of slowing down. There are countries like that, that it's like they're moving at a slower pace. You know, I've been in this process of moving to Portugal compared to the United States is much slower. Even when people are busy doing things, it feels different. Like there's actually a different pace to the way people are being that I can feel. One of my friends from the US who just visited said she felt like immediately when she got off the plane, it felt like this is a place where my nervous system can relax more. So that's really cool to notice. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to connect with each other. So I'm going to open up some breakout rooms, and there will be 2 or 3 people in a breakout room. And I just want you to connect. So whatever you know to do that is perfect. I'll give you a suggestion. We're going to be in there for 10 minutes, just short little breakout, 3 minutes per person. If you want, each person can speak for 3 minutes and just connect within, connect with them, and see what happens. Any questions about that? So 10 minutes total. If you have 3 people, it'll be 3 minutes per person. If you have 2 people, it will be 5 minutes per person. Okay, so I'm going to open the rooms, and I shall see you in 10 minutes. Welcome back, guys. So I'm really curious about what happened in your little connection experiment. So in particular, I'm curious anything that you're noticing that is new and fresh. And the reason I'm asking about this is because that's the space where insights live, where expansion lives, where discovery is happening in something that looks new or different, even if it's seeing something you've seen before from a different angle. So please raise your little digital hand and tell me, what are you noticing? What did you notice about connection? Maybe what worked, what didn't work. Maybe it changed throughout. And what do you make of it? Hi, Rob. Oh, it looks like you're muted. I'll ask you to unmute. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to share a bit as long as Rosita will let me. So, but maybe I can hand it over to Tom while I silence my mic, because we talked about the word slow, the experience slow. So I felt in our conversation it was really about slowing down and just be in the moment.
Slow. Do you want to elaborate on that, Tom?
Well, it started with Jen. Barb and I were both so kind of, I don't know, zenned out by her description of movies and the slowness and you know, I was really liking that. I think we just happened to be in a really compatible group of people. You know, like there was like instant nice feeling, nice sweet feeling among us all. And so we talked about the slowness and maybe having a slow community. So that was cool.
Yeah. That's interesting. I like to let the Zoom gods select who goes into the breakout rooms because, no, they seem to do a pretty good job of it much of the time. A crockpot community. That's true, right? Like if we showed up with each other, like Sean was saying, without dragging our past experiences and our judgments along with us, and we just all kind of hung out in the crock pot of nice feelings or slowness, I think the result is generally going to be pretty nice. I know it's the other day I was questioning some of this stuff that I'm exploring and talking about, which I think of as a good thing, by the way. I was like, all right, I say this stuff, but is it really true? Is it really true that when I calm down and when I get quiet, I'm kinder and I feel more connected? And I'm really looking for a time when that isn't true. Like, is there a time when I'm calm and I'm not in my noisy thinking that I'm mean to people? When I'm present and I'm unkind to other people? I'm like, well, the feeling of presence is so relaxing and nice that it would be hard to be mean without leaving that. Like, I don't know if I can. And I was thinking about it. I'm like really thinking about it because I don't just want to, like, don't believe me about the stuff that I'm saying. Test it out for yourself and look, notice for yourself. When are you most connected? When do you feel a sense of community? And what's going on inside of you versus the outside? And when does it look like on the outside it shouldn't be happening, but it is? Like, that's an interesting one. I've talked about the airport as being a barometer for what's going on inside of me. Because I first had an experience, I think 5 or 6 years ago, and it was after one of my transformational trainings, and I was just on a high in this beautiful feeling. And I was at the airport reading Alan Watts on top of it. I was like just feeding it with like, woo, I was like floating. And every single person I met was happy, I swear. And it was bizarre. I thought, I'm in the twilight zone. This is weird. Nobody is this happy at the airport. By the way, it was a red-eye flight back from Las Vegas to New York, which means I was traveling overnight. And I swear to you, I saw people. I remember specifically this woman talking to a man nearby, and she was saying how she had missed her flight and she'd been stuck in the airport for over 8 hours, and she was laughing about it. I was like, what is going on? And I said, it can't be the people. It's gotta be me. Because that's not normal. And so now every time I go to the airport, I just notice a lot of times I'm absurdly happy in the airport, but not always. But I just notice what's going on around me because I know it is showing me. It is a mirror for what's happening inside of me. And I don't think that it's literal, like I will only ever see happy people. But if I see someone who's unhappy when I'm in a good state, when I'm in a high mood, I just see them with compassion. They don't bother me. In fact, I feel a little like, oh, you must be hurting right now, So, slowing down. Anything else? What else are you guys noticing about connection? So shy. I will leave this. If something occurs to you, please do raise your digital hand so I can see you. I wanted to talk a little bit about, oh, Sam. Hi.
Hi. I was noticing something that fosters connection is sharing about things we care about, sharing what's on our heart, and that. And just before we went into the breakout rooms, I was thinking about like what contributes to connection. I was thinking about vulnerability and like being able to, and authentic vulnerability, not vulnerability for the sake of creating artificially creating connection. And so then now reflecting back on our conversation, realizing like, oh, as like we've shared about things that we care about that are meaningful to us, and probably that goes back to our first experiment where like that's changing my inner experience. I'm like softening and like feeling nice about the things that I like, and then my conversation partner is sharing about what's meaningful to them, what's on their heart, what they want to move towards. And so that for me felt like that brings a sense of connection.
Mhm. Yeah, I have seen that too. It's why I often will ask people I've just met, like, what's inspiring that's happening in your life? What do you love to do? And as I listen, I feel it, and I start to fall in love and be in love with them. And it's a really lovely feeling. And what's interesting is that I also have times when, because I do this thing we call coaching, often somebody will be telling me about something that they don't love. And they may be saying things that are really troubling to them and really distressing. And if I'm in that space of love, it's like I can just feel that with them. There's nothing like there's compassion. I don't need them to talk about something that they love in order for me to feel that. So it's interesting to notice that, right? Like, oh, it helps. It really helps because it's where I'm putting my attention. But that's the thing that I see. It's like, where am I putting my attention? Am I putting it on something that looks like a problem, or something that's agitating me, or something that's wrong that shouldn't be happening? Or am I putting it on this moment, the beauty of the person in front of me, listening, which is kind of like opening space for whatever is happening? Yeah, it's interesting to notice. Thank you for sharing that. So I had put in the topics that we would explore today something about creating impact, how healers and givers and connectors, and I would say that all of you here fall into that category, people who are interested in connecting in community, can make an impact, can create impact without feeling drained and exhausted. Because that's something that I see a lot in the people that I'm working and playing with, is that they often have overgiven, have tried to do more, and not taken care of themselves. And I don't want to just say things that I've said before here. This is something I challenge myself to do, is to show up fresh, even if I'm talking about something I've talked about before. Like there are some patterns I've been noting recently in relationship for me, where it feels like I'm giving too much, that it doesn't feel like there's a value exchange that's happening that feels good. But when I look at that, really, what's happening, it doesn't have anything to do with how much I'm giving. Because I'll tell you, I pour myself into some things and it never feels like it's draining. It's something in me. It's some story that I have in me about the exchange that makes it feel draining. It's some experience I'm creating here that makes it feel draining. It's not actually the measure of how much time and energy I'm putting in. And I'm saying this, I'm really looking at this in the moment, and I'm like, it's not. I can see, like, that's got to get a little curious. Like, at first it looks like, oh, when I do things, like for coaches, a lot of times they might be having free conversations with people, and they feel like, oh, I'm just giving too much and I'm not receiving. And it looks like, yeah, that's true. But there are times that I show up that way and it never feels draining. I'll give you a quick story of when I first really noticed this. I had taken a coach training, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. And prior to that time, I had set up my schedule a certain way to make sure that I had time for rest, because I could only do, like, I like to do 2 coaching conversations per day, maybe 3. 4 was draining, really draining. Like, I would be exhausted by the end of the day, and I knew it. So I would have calls on Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday, no calls. And by the time Tuesday came, I'd be like praying for Wednesday, because I just needed that break. Like, oh my God. Like, I need it. I'm just so tired. These coaching conversations are so draining, even though I really love them. They're just like exhausting, right? It's hard work being present. It's hard work listening to people, right? And really that was my experience at the time. So I did this coach training in which we really saw, what I saw was that showing up powerfully was actually doing less. There was actually less for me to do. And we did a lot with listening and just being with people, that powerful beingness that Jen was talking about. And so at some point after this training, I got to Wednesday and went, I didn't feel like I needed this break day. That's interesting. And then another week went by and it was Tuesday and I wasn't pining for Wednesday. Like, what's going on? And I realized that it wasn't draining me anymore. There was something I was doing in me prior to that training that I stopped doing. I think there was some tension around being with people. And I know that I've seen this happen again. By the way, it keeps getting easier. It keeps getting more energizing now. Now that I'm onto this, I stopped creating this pressure to listen and deliver results. I stopped trying so hard to help and figure out how to help this person. And without that, it's like being with someone just becomes this like relaxing meditation. It's not stressful at all. It's not taxing. In fact, it brings energy to me. So I share that by means of suggesting that it's actually not how much we're doing. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't take breaks. Yes, take breaks. Yes, have boundaries around like what's right for you and what isn't. Yes, absolutely. And also begin to notice what really drains you. Because I'll also say, there'll be a day I am so exhausted, I'm so tired, and I have a conversation with someone who's special to me, and I just light up, and it's like all of that exhaustion is gone. What happened? What was that exhaustion really? And I know that physically my body gets tired, but the tiredness, the drainingness is something that's going on inside of me that I'm creating by trying, by efforting, by worrying and overthinking. That is truly exhausting. And when we don't do that, we get to relax and just be. So I'm curious what you might have noticed about that. Like what helps you to show up and contribute to people that you want to help without feeling drained? Or When does that happen? In a way that feels really good. Hi, Rob. I'd love for you to unmute and share.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think for me, it's when I start feeling tired, and I mean more physically, then it becomes easier for me to connect in an authentic way. It sounds a bit paradox maybe, but that's sort of how it works for me. So because I sort of unconsciously or subconsciously, I drop my guarding or my fences or my walls, and I let the other person in because I just feel tired, and I'm welcoming the energy in that's happening with the other person. And then also there's a lot happening there, and it's maybe going very fast, but what I heard, what I filtered from you was it's important to have acknowledgement, to be heard, and to be loved. And that creates a lot of energy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. Yeah, there's this beautiful thing that happens. I can't connect to you without feeling connected to you. You know, like I can't, at the minute I actually am listening to you and being with you, I feel listened to. Like there's a deeper connection that's happening. When I am being in love with you, I feel loved. I feel love. You know, it's something that really naturally happens. And I've seen that my capacity to actually be with people without feeling drained, no matter what's happening with them. And I have been with some people in very distressing situations, talking about very disturbing things. It has increased the calmer I am in general, the more peace I feel in my life regularly. Back when I was very highly agitated, I couldn't do that because I would be around somebody who was upset and I would feel upset. I wasn't as deeply connected to, oh, I'm okay. It's going to be all right. And guess what? This person with me is okay too. The more that looks really true to me, the more I know that and I'm standing on it, I have a greater capacity to be with someone, to create impact, to contribute in ways that feel good. And also, I know when I need to take a break. Like, I also more clearly know I don't push myself past the point because that's a part of it. I can't really take care of you or anyone else or the planet if I'm not also listening and caring for me first. And I know that's the whole oxygen mask thing is a cliche now that we hear, like when you're on a plane and the oxygen mask comes down, you put your own mask on first before you help the people around you. It is a cliche, but it's also true. It's like if I can't help you if I'm suffocating. If my body is ready to collapse with exhaustion. And yet sometimes, as Rob said, when I'm tired, even physically tired, I am actually available. So it's not a rule here. There's something very unique in the moment that unfolds. So thank you. Hi, Jen. I'd love for you to unmute and share.
Yeah. So let me see. I don't know if I can explain why, but I really do better when there's like when scheduling isn't so much an issue. Like if I can just share space over a long period of time where like time doesn't really matter anymore. That's why I really like co-living kind of setup, because it's really easy to not to just get beyond schedule. So like these kind of 1 hour or 1.5 hour formats where there's just continuous talking, or even like meeting for coffee, it's very like active kind of yang for me. And I just really love, I haven't tried it for work yet, like in terms of a physical space, but I like the voice messaging format. I find that really like I can go like I could go for a whole day and I feel better than if it was in 1 hour session. Doesn't seem logical, but that's what works.
Yeah, that's interesting. And when something doesn't look the way you'd expect, I get curious about that, you know? So for me with schedules, I really like to set alarms for myself. And this was something that came out of a coach I was working with some years ago when I was talking about creating a schedule that feels joyful, like actually putting things on my calendar again to make sure I show up for them without doing the pressure game, which I had done before, which I'm clear I just don't want any of that. Can I go back to scheduling? This is a personal thing for me, by the way, very personal for me. And he said, well, then I was saying like, well, when I have stuff on my calendar, I keep looking to see, and like, I'm always thinking about, oh, I've got to do this next. I've got to show up for that. And so, well, why don't you just set an alarm on your phone? And then you don't have to think about any of that. Beginning of the day, just set alarms when you need to be someplace and then go there. And I loved it. And I love it still. And I'll actually set an alarm when I meet with somebody for, you know, coffee or whatever, in person or online. And I'll set an alarm that lets me know when I need to go to the next thing so I can completely forget about it. It's like I don't have to think about it. And that's what I saw was creating the tension around my schedule. Was I was thinking about it. I kept thinking about it. And when I stopped thinking about it, and it just happened that setting an alarm was a nice little tool for me to do that. But all I had to really do was not think about it. And I felt way more relaxed and it was much more easeful. So it might be good to just get curious about these things like, what's going on here where I feel like lots of energy that's not happening here where I feel drained, or vice versa. What isn't happening here that is happening here? And it can really show you something powerful for you that you'll own for yourself. Cool. So I have a little, as our time together draws to a close, I have a little experiment for you. So I'm going to suggest the proposed experiment is that over the next 24 hours, or if you want to start tomorrow, you can do that. Just take 24 hours and everywhere you go, connect with people. Just have an intention to connect with the people you see whenever you think of it. So there's no particular thing you have to do. Just show up and connect. So it might mean that you find yourself smiling and saying hello, but you might not even make eye contact. And you can experiment with both. Like what if you're with someone and you connect to them without looking at them? And what happens? What do you notice? It's an experiment. It's all yours. So you can't do it wrong. The only way to do an experiment wrong is not to do it at all. But that's also your choice. So that's my challenge for you. And I would love to hear what you discover from it. And I'm going to share a little bit about the Community Builders Circle. If you haven't already joined or investigated, we're going to be explorers in community with experiments that are, some of them thought experiments for us as individuals, and some of them actual experiments in our communities to see what happens, to see what we can see about connection and safety and support and healing and going beyond superficial connections and what we can create together as a community. So if you're interested in that, you can go to theawakenedbusiness.com/CB letter, all one word, no spaces in there, CB letter, or just email me. And we're starting on July 12th. So anything else that is coming up new and fresh for you today that you'd like to share before we end our exploration for today? I'm wondering if it feels a little easier, perhaps, to connect, or maybe not quite so intimidating, or maybe you're bumping up against resistance. That might be happening too. Well, not a bad thing. Hi, Sean.
So, what'd you ask again? I'm sorry. What was the question?
It was kind of an open-ended question. It was like,
Open-ended question.
but I can ask the last one. Like, does it look a little easier, this whole connection and community thing, or is it looking different to you than it was before, perhaps? Or what are you noticing about it?
There was nothing before, so now it's looking like something, you know. And you know, I think that, you know, one thing came to mind when you mentioned something about love, but you know, understanding how to love other people in the community, or like they want to be loved in a way. Not, I think a lot of times my problem in the past is thinking like loving people the way you want to, or not even not, you know, maybe love's not the right word, interacting with people the way they want you to interact. Like if you have a cat or an animal, you know, different animals like different things. So I mean, being cognizant, I guess when you had mentioned something, that was what was helpful to myself, to remember that for myself, to always to be, as this is new and trying to re-enter into community, understanding that understanding people, getting to know them, you know, what they, being cognizant or aware of what they are in need of, and even if it's, you know, as they're interacting with people, as opposed to how we feel like we want to force our, so, you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm saying it right, but hopefully maybe you can, do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, I can try. What I heard,
yeah,
but what I kind of make of that is that instead of having an expectation or agenda for how this relationship should go, when we show up with a curiosity about what this person would like, which happens in listening, when we're actually really listening and being with someone instead of being on our own thoughts about how it should go.
Yeah, I think that for me, that's what I kind of tapped, like I'll be more successful in community, just getting to know people and then being able to be there, you know.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah,
Noticing that is really powerful for community and connection. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, thank you everyone for being here with me, for exploring, for showing up so beautifully, really, with me and each other. And I hope this has ignited a little something in you, or perhaps inspired something in you that you now will take into the world, into the communities you're a part of. That really means a lot to me, the chance to have an opportunity like this, like that, knowing that you beautiful people are spreading the fire in a lovely way. So thank you so much. And I shall be in touch soon in one way or another. And if you have questions or feedback from this, please do send me an email. I love hearing from you. Okay. Bye for now.
Thanks, Steph. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, everyone. See you next
Thank
time.
you.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.